The courtroom was silent until the gavel struck. The old man in chains lowered his head, his hands trembling. Then a voice shattered the silence. "We will defend our dad." Every head in the room turned. Standing tall, a man and a woman, both white, both determined, raised their hands to take the oath. The prosecutor smirked and whispered to his colleague, mocking, "That's not their real father." But the siblings' eyes burned with defiance, daring anyone to challenge them. The judge leaned forward, studying the old man with weary eyes. "Mr. Harris," he said sternly, "you stand accused of fraud and theft. Do you have anyone to speak on your behalf?" Before the defense attorney could even move, the young woman stepped forward. Her voice trembled but carried across the courtroom. "Yes, Your Honor, we do. Because without him, we wouldn't even be alive today." Before we move further into this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear. Let's dive in. 20 years earlier, in the dead of winter, two children had huddled in the doorway of an abandoned store. Their mother was gone. Their father had disappeared. They had no blanket, no food, nothing but each other. Strangers passed by with quickened steps, pretending not to see. To the world, they were invisible. But one night, a tall black man carrying a bag of groceries stopped. He bent down carefully, his face kind but serious. "You kids eaten today?" he asked. The boy shook his head. The girl tried to answer, but her lips were too frozen to form words. Without hesitation, the man slipped off his coat, wrapped it around both shivering children, and led them quietly to his small apartment. There, he poured them bowls of warm soup, gave them the only bed he had, and lay down on the floor himself. They didn't know his name yet, but that night they knew something life-changing. Someone finally saw them. His name was James Harris. What began as a single act of kindness turned into a lifetime of devotion. He became more than a rescuer. He became a father. James walked the children to school every morning, even as other parents whispered behind his back, "Why is he raising white kids?" He ignored the judgment and focused only on the kids who now called him Dad. When the boy came home one day, after being bullied for not having real parents, James knelt beside him, steady and unshaken. "Son," he said, "families aren't written in blood. They're written in sacrifice." When the girl cried because her classmates mocked her old, worn clothes, James quietly picked up extra janitor shifts, returning days later with a second-hand dress that made her beam with pride. And every night at dinner, he would bow his head and pray, not for himself, but that my children never go to bed hungry again. He never saw them as charity. He only saw them as his own. But life has a cruel way of punishing the good. Years later, James was accused of a financial crime at the company where he worked. Fraud he didn't commit. Evidence was twisted, witnesses were pressured, and the court decided that an old black man with no real family was an easy scapegoat. They handed him a life sentence. The children, now teenagers, were devastated. They visited him in the cold steel prison, pressing their hands against the glass, begging for answers. James only smiled sadly. "Don't waste your lives fighting my battles," he told them. "Live, make me proud." And so they did. The boy grew into a man who studied law, determined to fight injustice. The girl became a journalist, driven to uncover the truth the world tried to bury. Yet every Christmas, every birthday, they returned to that same visiting room, pressing their palms against the glass, whispering the same vow. "We won't stop until you're free." 2 decades later, they kept their promise. In that courtroom, the siblings stood tall, no longer helpless children, but warriors armed with truth. The son, now a lawyer, faced the jury. His voice cracked but carried weight. He reminded them of the night 2 starving children were rescued from the cold, of the man who gave them a home, who fed them when he had nothing, who taught them that love was stronger than blood. "And today," he declared, "you call him a criminal? Number, the only crime here is letting the man who saved our lives rot behind bars." The daughter stepped forward, her hands shaking as she held up photographs. Images of 2 starving children, followed by 2 teenagers standing proudly at their graduation with James by their side. She looked directly at the jurors. "He is our father in every way that matters, and if you sentence him today, you are not just punishing an innocent man. You are punishing the only person who ever taught us love." The room fell silent. Even the prosecutor shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet her eyes. The jury whispered. Minutes later, the foreman stood and announced, "Not guilty." Gasps filled the courtroom. Tears streamed down the siblings' faces as the guards unlocked the chains and freed James's hands. For the first time in 20 years, he was free. James turned to his children, his voice cracking, "I told you to live your lives." His son grabbed his hand, firm and unwavering. "We did, and we lived them for you." His daughter wrapped her arms around him. "Now you get to live yours." As they walked out of the courtroom together, strangers in the gallery stood and clapped. It wasn't applause for the verdict, it was for the man who had rewritten the definition of family. James Harris hadn't just saved 2 children. He had taught them what love, sacrifice, and loyalty truly meant. And when the world tried to destroy him, it was those same children who saved him in return. Family isn't about DNA, it's about who shows up when the world turns its back. And that's why respect followed her everywhere she went. If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know how you feel in the comments.